What if the most dangerous lies are not the words people say, but the intentions they hide behind a charming smile? The truth is, manipulators do not announce their presence. They are masters of disguise, wrapping their selfish agendas in the language of love, concern, and friendship. They are the coworker who subtly undermines you while praising you, the partner who makes you feel crazy for questioning them, and the friend who drains your energy with endless crises. This book is your guide to seeing through the mask. It is a field manual for the human mind, designed to equip you with the skills to detect deception, recognize emotional traps, and build an unshakable inner strength. You are about to turn on your internal lie detector and see the world with clarifying, unfiltered vision. The Lie Detector: How to Spot a Manipulator, written and published by Stealth Psychology. Chapter 1: The Hidden Manipulator Unveiled. Imagine you have a coworker who is, by all accounts, the perfect colleague. They are charming, helpful, and always the first to compliment your work in front of others. They bring coffee, remember birthdays, and seem to be your biggest supporter in every meeting. Yet you have this nagging, unsettling feeling in the pit of your stomach that you can't quite shake. You notice that after you share a creative idea with them in confidence, a slightly less impressive version of that same idea somehow ends up in the boss's inbox, with their name attached as the lead. You notice that their public praise is often followed by a subtle, private comment that makes you second-guess your own competence. Like, "That was a great presentation. It's amazing how confident you are, even when the data is a little thin." There is no concrete evidence, nothing you can point to and say, "That was a direct act of sabotage." There is only this persistent, isolating feeling that you are a pawn in a sophisticated game you don't understand, being skillfully managed by a friendly face. This is the profound and deeply confusing problem of the hidden manipulator. They do not operate with open aggression. They operate in the shadows of social grace, using plausible deniability as their ultimate shield. The pain of this experience is immense because it systematically makes you question your own judgment and sanity. You feel isolated because how can you possibly complain about someone who is, on the surface, so wonderful and supportive? You start to believe that you are the one who is paranoid, ungrateful, or overly sensitive. This self-doubt is the manipulator's most powerful weapon, as it turns your own mind against you, making you an unwitting accomplice in your own deception. The transformative solution to this invisible threat is to stop second-guessing your intuition and start actively training it to see what's really there. You must develop a new way of seeing people, a powerful mindset we will call psychological X-ray vision. This is not a mystical or supernatural power, but a highly developed skill of looking past the surface-level performance that people present to the world and seeing the underlying structures of their character, their insecurities, and their true intent. While everyone else around you is interacting with the carefully curated social mask, you will learn to see the person behind it with startling clarity. This skill is your ultimate liberation from the exhausting fog of covert manipulation. It provides you with the undeniable clarity to distinguish between genuine kindness and strategic charm, between authentic support and calculated self-interest. It completely removes the confusion and self-doubt that manipulators rely on to operate effectively. When you can see a person's true motivations with this level of clarity, their subtle games and hidden agendas become as obvious as if they were written on their forehead in bright, glowing letters. This is not about becoming a cynical or distrustful person. It is about becoming a discerning one. It is the power to see the truth, to protect your own emotional and professional well-being, and to engage with the world from a position of unshakable confidence and profound inner strength. To activate your psychological X-ray vision, you must master 3 fundamental principles of observation until they become second nature. The first principle is to look beyond the mask by analyzing patterns, not moments. Every person wears a social mask, a version of themselves they present to the public. A manipulator's mask is a work of art, often crafted to be exceptionally charming, helpful, pitiable, or authoritative. To see beyond it, you must become a student of incongruence, the critical mismatch between what a person says in a moment and what they consistently do over time. This works because while anyone can say the right words in a given situation, it is incredibly difficult and mentally taxing to maintain a false persona consistently through actions over a long period. The manipulator's true character will always leak through their behavioral patterns. To practice this, become an objective observer, like a scientist collecting data. Ignore their charming words and focus solely on the tangible results of their actions. Does your supportive coworkers help actually advance your projects, or does it mysteriously lead to delays, complications, or situations that make them look better in comparison? Does your loving partner's deep concern for you result in you feeling more confident and empowered, or does it consistently result in you isolating yourself from your friends and family to appease them? For example, a person might wear the mask of being a generous friend, always offering to help in public. But when you analyze the pattern, you notice they only offer help on tasks that are highly visible, where they will be praised for their generosity. They are mysteriously unavailable for the difficult, private, thankless tasks. Their actions over time reveal that their true motivation is not generosity, but the appearance of generosity for social credit. The second principle is to listen for the dissonance. Dissonance is the jarring, out-of-tune note in a person's communication. It is the subtle but palpable contradiction between their words, their tone of voice, and the emotional energy they project. Manipulators are often skilled storytellers, but it is nearly impossible to maintain perfect harmony across all channels of communication when being deceptive. This principle works because your subconscious mind, your gut feeling, is incredibly adept at picking up on these subtle mismatches. Even if your conscious mind is busy processing the words being spoken, this is often the true source of that feeling that something is off. To apply this, you must practice active listening on multiple levels. Is their tone of voice congruent with the emotion they are trying to convey? For instance, a manipulator might apologize to you with words that sound perfect. I am so incredibly sorry if what I said hurt your feelings, but deliver them with a flat, emotionless tone, or a fleeting, almost imperceptible smirk that their mouth tries to suppress. Your ear hears the apology, but your gut feels the chilling dissonance between the conciliatory words and the complete lack of genuine remorse. Another form of dissonance to listen for is the word salad, a common tactic where a person responds to a direct and simple question with a long, rambling, and circular stream of jargon and tangential information that never actually answers the original question, leaving you feeling dizzy, confused, and unsure of what was even said. This is a deliberate tactic to create confusion and evade accountability. The third principle is to trust your emotional compass. Your emotions are a highly sophisticated data processing system, a form of intelligence that you must learn to respect. When you interact with someone, you are not just hearing their words, you are feeling their presence, their energy, their intent. Your emotional reaction to a person is a powerful source of vital information. A genuine, trustworthy, and well-intentioned person tends to make you feel calm, respected, seen, and often energized. A hidden manipulator, on the other hand, frequently leaves you feeling drained, confused, anxious, small, or diminished, even after a seemingly positive or neutral interaction. This works because you are subconsciously reacting to the thousands of microsignals they are emitting, signals of contempt, envy, or duplicity that your logical mind might miss. You must learn to treat your own feelings as valid diagnostic tools. To use your emotional compass, perform a simple check-in with yourself after an interaction with a person of interest. Ask yourself, how do I physically and emotionally feel right now in this moment? Do you feel a tension in your shoulders, a knot in your stomach? Do you feel mentally exhausted, as if you just ran a marathon? Do you feel a vague and uninvited sense of guilt or obligation that wasn't there before? These are critical red flags from your internal guidance system. By mastering these three principles, your psychological X-ray vision will allow you to see the hidden manipulators in your life with startling and empowering clarity. Now that you have unveiled the manipulator, how do you decode their primary weapon, the art of the lie? What if you could learn to distinguish a convincing fiction from a hard truth? The next chapter will teach you how to decode the very architecture of deception. Remember to subscribe to Stealth Psychology, give this video a like, and comment with your personal opinions or suggestions for channel development. Chapter 2. Decoding the Art of Deception. Imagine you are a juror sitting in the solemn, wood-paneled courtroom of a high-stakes trial. A key witness takes the stand. They are well-dressed, articulate, and they deliver a powerful, emotional, and incredibly detailed testimony. Their story is consistent. Their narrative is compelling, and they look the lawyer straight in the eye as they recount the events with conviction. Every instinct in your body tells you that they are telling the absolute truth. Their performance is, in a word, flawless. There's just one problem. Every single word they are saying is a masterfully constructed and rehearsed lie. This scenario highlights a deeply uncomfortable but essential truth about human nature. We are all, by default, very poor lie detectors. As social creatures, our brains are wired for trust and cohesion, not for constant suspicion. We want to believe people. Furthermore, we are easily swayed by signals of confidence and a compelling narrative, often mistaking a good performance for an honest one. This natural disposition leads directly to the painful and often damaging experience of being deceived. It could be a relatively small betrayal, like a friend lying about why they canceled important plans, or it could be a massive one, like a business partner systematically lying about the company's finances, putting your livelihood at risk. The result is always the same: a profound violation of trust that leaves you feeling foolish, angry, and questioning your own ability to judge character. The core problem is that most of us have been taught to look for all the wrong signs. We instinctively look for the stereotypical, Hollywood-inspired signs of lying: shifty eyes, nervous fidgeting, sweating, which decades of psychological research have shown to be incredibly unreliable. A skilled liar can easily control these signals, while an honest but naturally nervous person might display all of them while telling the absolute truth. You are looking for a simple, single tell in a complex game of psychological chess, and that is a losing strategy. The transformative solution is to stop looking for a single magic sign of lying and to start thinking like a trained investigator or a forensic analyst. You must learn to use a systematic, multi-layered approach we will call the deception decoder. This is a comprehensive framework that moves beyond simplistic and unreliable body language cues and instead focuses on analyzing the entire communication package: the story they tell, the body they tell it with, and the emotional baseline they tell it from. This methodical approach is profoundly effective because it does not rely on any single indicator of deception. Instead, it teaches you to look for clusters of inconsistencies, contradictions, and significant deviations from that person's normal behavior. A lie is a performance, an act of creation that requires immense cognitive resources to maintain. It is incredibly difficult for anyone, no matter how skilled a liar they may be, to maintain perfect consistency across their verbal, nonverbal, and emotional channels simultaneously. By learning precisely where to look, you can spot the inevitable cracks in their performance. This skill liberates you from being a passive audience member, vulnerable to any good story, and transforms you into an active, critical analyst, capable of distinguishing a carefully rehearsed script from a spontaneously recalled truth. To effectively operate the deception decoder, you must become proficient in analyzing three key areas of communication. The first and most revealing area is analyzing the narrative. The internal structure of a story itself can betray its authenticity. Truthful accounts are recalled from memory, while deceptive accounts are constructed and then recited. This fundamental difference creates detectable patterns that you can learn to spot. One of the most reliable techniques is to look for the difference between spontaneous correction and scripted perfection. A person telling the truth from memory, which is a reconstructive process, will often naturally self-correct as they go. They might say, "I got to the office around 9. No, wait, I remember now, it was actually closer to 9:15 because I had to stop for gas on the way." This is a hallmark of genuine memory recall. A liar, on the other hand, has often rehearsed their story to a state of suspicious perfection. Their narrative is smooth, linear, and devoid of the natural imperfections and self-corrections of real memory. Another powerful technique is to ask them to tell the story in reverse chronological order. This is a relatively simple cognitive task for someone recalling real events, but it is incredibly difficult for someone reciting a rehearsed script, as it dramatically increases their mental workload. Their smooth narrative will often break down into long, confused pauses and logical contradictions. For example, if you suspect an employee is lying about why they missed a deadline, instead of asking them to repeat their excuse, say, "Okay, so I can get a clear picture. Could you walk me through what happened yesterday, starting from when you went home in the evening and going backwards in time for me?" Watch for the hesitation and mental strain that follows. The second area is observing the body. While looking for a single nervous tic is a fool's errand, observing clusters of nonverbal signals, especially those that directly contradict the words being spoken, can be very revealing. The key is to look for signs of cognitive and emotional stress that leak through their physical form. One powerful cluster to observe is the combination of unnatural stillness and delayed gestures. When a person is trying to carefully control a lie, their brain is working overtime to manage the story, monitor your reaction, and suppress the truth. This intense cognitive load can cause them to become unusually still in their upper body, almost robotic, as their brain diverts resources away from normal movement. Furthermore, their hand gestures, which normally sync perfectly with their speech, may become disconnected, occurring a second or two after the word they are meant to emphasize. This is a telltale sign that the gesture is a conscious, rehearsed addition rather than a natural, subconscious expression. Another signal to watch for is a change in blink rate. While a faster blink rate can indicate stress, a deliberately slow and infrequent blink rate can be a sign of someone trying too hard to maintain steady eye contact to appear truthful. The third and most crucial area is gauging the emotional baseline. You cannot spot an abnormal reaction if you do not know what a normal reaction looks like for that specific person. Before you can decode deception, you must first establish a baseline of their normal behavior. This means observing how the person acts, speaks, and emotes when they are in a relaxed, non-threatening state, discussing neutral topics like the weather, sports, or their hobbies. How fast do they normally talk? How much eye contact do they typically make? What is their normal posture and level of animation? Once you have this baseline firmly in your mind, you can then look for significant deviations when you introduce a more sensitive or probing topic. For example, you have established that your partner is normally very expressive and uses a lot of open hand gestures when talking about their day. When you ask them about a strange name you saw in a text message on their phone, you notice that they suddenly pull their hands in, perhaps clasping them together. Their posture becomes closed, and their blink rate increases dramatically. This is a significant deviation from their emotional baseline, a bright red flag indicating a high level of internal stress associated with that specific topic. It is not definitive proof of a lie, but it is a powerful signal that tells you precisely where you need to dig deeper. By combining these three layers of analysis, the narrative, the body, and the baseline, you create a powerful cross-referencing system that makes it incredibly difficult for a lie to go unnoticed. Now that you can decode a lie, how do you decode the even more subtle art of emotional manipulation? What are the traps that manipulators set to ensnare your feelings and control your behavior? The next chapter will give you a field guide to the most common emotional traps and red flags. Remember to subscribe to Stealth Psychology. Give this video a like and comment with your personal opinions or suggestions for channel development. Chapter 3. Emotional Traps and Red Flags. Imagine you are walking through a dense, beautiful forest. The sun is shining through the canopy, the birds are singing, and you feel a sense of profound peace and tranquility. But hidden just beneath the colorful autumn leaves on the path ahead is a cleverly disguised trap, a powerful snare with sharp teeth, designed to catch you when you are most relaxed and least expect it. This is exactly what it feels like to navigate the complex world of emotional manipulation. Manipulators, the true predators of the psychological world, do not announce their traps with warning signs. They do the exact opposite. They expertly camouflage their traps with the most appealing bait imaginable. Words of love, expressions of deep concern, overwhelming praise, or heart-wrenching stories of pity. You walk into them completely unaware, your guard down, and then in an instant the trap springs shut. You find yourself caught, your emotions tangled in a powerful net of guilt, fear, or obligation, psychologically compelled to act in ways that serve the manipulator's hidden agenda, not your own. You have almost certainly experienced this. Perhaps you found yourself agreeing to lend a significant amount of money to a friend after they told you a heart-wrenching sob story, even though your own finances were precariously tight. Maybe you stayed silent during a crucial work meeting, afraid to voice your brilliant opinion after your boss made a subtle but clear display of anger. Or perhaps you were so intoxicated by someone's relentless flattery and attention that you willingly overlooked glaring red flags in their character. This is the painful and disorienting experience of being emotionally trapped. The core problem is that your emotions, which are meant to be your internal guidance system, are hijacked and systematically used against you. The manipulator knows exactly which emotional levers to pull to generate a predictable response, and they expertly use that response to control your behavior. You are left feeling used, resentful, and often deeply angry at yourself for falling for it yet again. The transformative solution to this pervasive problem is to stop being an unwitting victim of these traps and to become a skilled trapper yourself. Not to trap others, but to learn how to identify and disarm the traps that are set for you. You must adopt a powerful mindset of emotional fortification. This is the deliberate process of building up your psychological and emotional defenses so that you can recognize an emotional trap from a distance, understand its mechanics, and consciously choose not to step in it. It is about learning the distinct signatures, the telltale signs of the most common emotional snares so that they are no longer invisible to you. When you have fortified your emotions, a profound shift occurs. You can observe someone attempting to make you feel guilty without actually feeling the corrosive sting of guilt. You can recognize a blatant attempt to intimidate you with fear without feeling the paralyzing grip of fear. This is the ultimate form of emotional freedom and sovereignty. It allows you to engage with the world with an open and compassionate heart, but also with a wise and protected mind. It means you can navigate complex social interactions with a newfound confidence, knowing that you possess the tools to protect your emotional well-being from anyone who would seek to exploit it for their own gain. To begin building your emotional fortification, you must learn to identify the 3 most powerful and commonly used emotional traps and their corresponding red flags. The first is the guilt trap. This is perhaps the most frequently used and effective trap in personal and family relationships. It is specifically designed to exploit your conscience, your innate desire to be a good and caring person, and your natural aversion to causing others pain. The manipulator skillfully engineers a situation where refusing their request, disagreeing with their opinion, or setting a healthy boundary is framed as a selfish, cruel, or uncaring act on your part. This works by making you feel personally responsible for their emotional state. They hand you the heavy burden of their happiness or sadness, a burden you were never meant to carry. For example, a parent who wants their adult child to visit more often might say with a sigh, "It's all right. Don't worry about me. I'll just be here all alone for the holidays, but I really do want you to have fun." The words say, "It's okay," but the message is a powerful guilt-inducing arrow. Your absence is the direct cause of my profound loneliness and suffering. A friend who wants you to do them a favor might say, "I asked you because I thought you were the only person I could truly count on in this world." This masterfully frames your potential refusal not as a simple matter of your own boundaries, but as a deep and personal betrayal of their trust. The most significant red flag for a guilt trap is any time you feel a sudden, heavy, and uninvited sense of obligation or the distinct feeling that you are a bad person for simply wanting to say no. The second trap is the fear trap. This trap is more primal and works by activating your most basic survival instincts. The manipulator uses intimidation, veiled threats, displays of anger, or the creation of an unstable environment to make you feel unsafe, whether that threat is physical, professional, or emotional. This triggers a fight or flight response in your brain, which effectively shuts down your rational thought processes and makes you highly compliant. The manipulator's goal is to make you so focused on avoiding the perceived threat that you will agree to anything just to restore a sense of safety. A boss might use this trap by saying in a cold, quiet voice during a disagreement, "You need to remember who signs your paychecks and who determines your future in this company." This is a clear, veiled threat to your financial security, designed to immediately silence your dissent. In a personal relationship, a partner might resort to dramatic displays of anger, slamming a door, throwing an object, or giving you an icy stare during an argument. They may not be physically threatening you, but the display of rage is a calculated performance designed to trigger your fear response and make you back down immediately. The red flag for a fear trap is a sudden feeling of being physically tense, a knot in your stomach, and an urgent, almost desperate need to appease the other person and de-escalate the situation, even if it means completely abandoning your own valid position. The third and most seductive trap is the flattery trap, also known in its more intense form as love bombing. This trap is particularly dangerous because it feels wonderful to walk into. The manipulator showers you with intense, often excessive, and unearned praise, affection, and attention. They make you feel as if you're the most intelligent, beautiful, and fascinating person they have ever met. This works by targeting your deep-seated human need for validation, significance, and belonging. The overwhelming positivity creates a rapid and powerful chemical bond, and it makes you feel deeply indebted to the person who is making you feel so good about yourself. This makes it incredibly difficult to see their flaws or to say no to them later on. For instance, a new romantic partner might tell you they love you after only a few weeks, constantly praise your every quality, and insist on spending every waking moment with you, effectively isolating you. This whirlwind of affection can be intoxicating, but it is often a deliberate strategy to make you addicted to and dependent on their validation. The red flag for the flattery trap is praise or affection that feels disproportionate to the length or depth of the relationship. It is attention that feels less like genuine, slowly building admiration, and more like a strategic, overwhelming campaign. By learning the distinct signatures of these three traps, you can begin to see them before they close around you, giving you the power to choose your own emotional state. You now understand how your emotions can be targeted. But what about the more complex and structured mind games that manipulators play to distort your reality? The next chapter will teach you how to recognize the signs of these insidious games. Remember to subscribe to Stealth Psychology, give this video a like, and comment with your personal opinions or suggestions for channel development. Chapter 4. Mind Games, Recognizing the Signs. Imagine you are walking through a carnival funhouse, specifically the Hall of Mirrors. All around you are reflections of yourself, but none of them are true. One mirror stretches you tall and thin, another makes you short and wide. The floor seems to tilt and the walls bend. Your own reflection becomes a source of confusion and distrust. After a few minutes inside, you begin to feel disoriented, dizzy, and you start to question which way is up. This is precisely what it feels like to be the target of a psychological mind game. A skilled manipulator is a master of this hall of mirrors. They do not attack you directly. Instead, they subtly warp and distort your reality until you can no longer trust your own perceptions. They are designed to make you feel like you are the one who is flawed, that you are going crazy. This is an insidious form of psychological abuse, and its effects can be devastating. The pain of this experience runs deep, leading to chronic self-doubt, anxiety, and a feeling of profound isolation. You find yourself constantly second-guessing your memories, your feelings, and your own sanity. The core problem is that these games are not meant to be won by you. They are not even meant to be understood. Their entire purpose is to create a fog of confusion that keeps you off balance, insecure, and ultimately, easier to control. As long as you are lost in their hall of mirrors, you will be powerless to find the exit. The transformative solution is not to try and win the game or to convince the manipulator that your reflection is the true one. This is a trap that will only lead to more frustration. The true solution is to develop what we will call the reality anchor. An anchor is a heavy, unmovable object that keeps a ship steady in a storm, preventing it from being tossed about by the chaotic waves. Similarly, a reality anchor is a practice that keeps your mind steady and firmly grounded in objective truth, making you immune to the manipulator's attempts to create a storm of confusion. This mindset shift is about moving your source of validation from the external, the manipulator's version of events, to the internal and objective, your own verified perceptions. It is the conscious decision to trust your own senses and to build a framework of proof around your experiences. This is your pathway to liberation. When you are firmly anchored in reality, the manipulator's distorted reflections lose all their power. You can see them for what they are, illusions, and they can no longer make you feel dizzy or lost. You can navigate their funhouse with a calm sense of clarity, knowing with unshakable certainty which way is up. To build your own powerful reality anchor, you must learn to recognize the most common mind games and deploy a specific anchoring technique for each one. The first and most famous mind game is gaslighting, which is the systematic attempt to distort and overwrite your reality. This is far more than just simple lying. It is a dedicated campaign to make you doubt your own memory and sanity. An example would be a partner who, after making a promise to you, later denies it with absolute conviction, saying, "I never said that. You must be imagining things, or you're remembering it wrong." The specific anchor for gaslighting is the practice of external verification. This means getting your reality out of your head and into the objective world. Immediately after a significant conversation or event, write it down in a private journal. Note the date, the time, and exactly what was said or what happened, in as much detail as possible. This written record becomes your external anchor. Later, when the gaslighter tries to distort the past, you do not need to rely on your fallible memory. You can consult your private record. This practice isn't for arguing with them, which is pointless, but for reaffirming your own sanity. You can look at your journal and know, with certainty, "I am not crazy. This is what happened." The psychological impact of gaslighting is the erosion of self-trust over time. It creates a dependency where the victim feels they need the manipulator to interpret reality for them. By using an external anchor, you break this dependency and reclaim your role as the narrator of your own life. The second mind game is projection, which is a psychological defense mechanism where a manipulator takes their own negative qualities, feelings, or actions and accuses you of them. It is like an emotional game of hot potato where they desperately try to hand you their own shame and guilt. This works by putting you on the defensive, forcing you to justify yourself against a bizarre and often baseless accusation, which distracts you from their own bad behavior. For example, a person who is habitually dishonest and secretive may constantly accuse their partner of lying or hiding things. A coworker who is lazy and cuts corners may accuse you of not pulling your weight. The accusation feels so out of left field because it is not about you at all. It is a confession of their own character. The anchor against projection is a powerful mental tool called the mirror question. When you are hit with a strange, unfair, or out-of-place accusation, you must pause and silently ask yourself this question: is this accusation a more accurate description of the person who is making it? More often than not, the answer will be a resounding yes. This technique instantly reframes the attack. It is no longer an assault on your character. It is an involuntary admission of theirs. You see that their accusation is not a reflection of you, but a reflection of them, and it loses all its power to hurt you. The psychological impact of projection is that it makes the victim feel perpetually flawed and misunderstood, always defending against phantom criticisms. The mirror question serves as a shield, deflecting the projected negativity back to its source, at least within your own mind, preserving your self-concept. The third common mind game is the moving goalposts. This is a tactic designed to keep you in a perpetual state of striving and feeling inadequate. The manipulator sets a clear condition for their approval, praise, or for a reward. However, as soon as you meet that condition, they change the criteria for success, setting a new, often more difficult goal. For instance, a boss might say, if you can just land this one big client, you'll be on track for a promotion. You work tirelessly and land the client. Instead of praise, they say, that's great, but now you need to land 3 more clients like that to really prove yourself. The goalposts have been moved, the promised reward is snatched away, and you are left feeling that your best efforts are never good enough. The anchor against this is the firm but calm boundary statement. This involves refusing to play the new game by holding them to the original agreement. You must calmly and respectfully state the original terms. For example, you could say to your boss, my understanding from our last conversation was that landing this specific client was the key milestone for being considered for the promotion. I've successfully met that goal, and I'd like to discuss the next steps based on that original understanding. This communicates that you are aware of the game and will not continue to chase an ever-receding target. It anchors the conversation back to the reality of the initial agreement. The psychological impact of moving goalposts is learned helplessness, where the victim begins to believe that nothing they do will ever be good enough, causing them to stop trying. The boundary statement breaks this cycle by reasserting agency and fairness. By practicing these anchoring techniques, you make your mind a fortress that cannot be breached by psychological games. You can now recognize the games and anchor your reality. But what do you do when a manipulator launches a direct psychological attack in real time? How do you neutralize their tactics in the heat of the moment without losing your cool? The next chapter will teach you the art of diffusing manipulative attacks. Remember to subscribe to Stealth Psychology, give this video a like, and comment with your personal opinions or suggestions for channel development. Chapter 5. Diffusing Manipulative Tactics. Imagine yourself in a high-stakes chess match. Your opponent, a skilled manipulator, makes a sudden, aggressive move. They might slide their bishop across the board in a veiled threat, sacrifice a pawn to put you in a position of guilt, or rearrange the pieces while you are not looking in an act of gaslighting. In that critical moment, what do? Do you freeze, unsure of how to respond? Do you lash out with anger, knocking over your own pieces in the process? Or do you calmly and strategically make a countermove that not only protects your king, but completely neutralizes their entire attack? This is the situation you face every time a manipulator uses a direct tactic on you in a live conversation. The attack is launched, and you are on the clock to respond. The immense pain and difficulty of this situation is the feeling of being cornered, trapped, or ambushed. When someone uses a guilt trip, a veiled threat, or a direct insult, our primal brain often takes over. We either freeze up, unable to think of what to say until hours later when we replay the conversation in our minds, or we get emotionally hijacked, responding with an angry outburst that only escalates the conflict and makes us look unstable. Both responses result in a victory for the manipulator. They have successfully controlled our emotional state and derailed the conversation, leaving us feeling powerless and full of regret. The transformative solution is to train yourself to move beyond these primal reactions and to cultivate the mindset of the calm neutralizer. When a bomb is found, a bomb squad does not try to overpower it with a bigger explosion. They use precise, calculated techniques to calmly defuse it, rendering it completely harmless. This must be your approach to manipulative tactics. The goal is not to fight back with aggression or to meet their dark energy with more dark energy. The goal is to calmly and strategically apply a specific counter technique that neutralizes the power of their tactic, taking all the energy out of their attack without escalating the conflict. This is the highest form of psychological self-defense. It allows you to protect your boundaries, maintain your composure, and stay in control of the interaction, no matter what the other person throws at you. By becoming a calm neutralizer, you turn a moment of high-stakes psychological warfare into a simple, predictable problem with a clear, effective solution. You take back your power by refusing to let them dictate your emotional response. This shift from emotional reaction to strategic action is the cornerstone of developing true psychological strength and resilience in the face of manipulation. To become a calm neutralizer, you must learn and practice a specific diffusing technique for each of the most common manipulative tactics. The first tactic is the guilt trip, and its counter is the acknowledge and assert method. A guilt trip works by making you feel responsible for the manipulator's negative emotions. The acknowledge and assert method is a simple two-step verbal formula that diffuses this. Step 1 is to acknowledge their feeling without accepting responsibility for it. This is done by using empathetic but detached language, such as, "I can see that you are feeling disappointed," or "It sounds like you are feeling really hurt right now." This part is crucial because it shows you are listening, which can de-escalate their emotion, but it does not admit fault. A common mistake is to over-empathize and say, "I'm so sorry I made you feel that way," which accepts blame. Stick to neutral observations of their feelings. Step 2 is to calmly and firmly assert your boundary or decision. For example, a family member says, "If you don't come to the family dinner, you'll be ruining the whole evening for everyone." Instead of arguing or giving in, you apply the formula, "I can see that you're worried this will ruin the evening, acknowledge, and I have already made other plans that I will be keeping, assert." You have not been defensive, you have not been aggressive, but you have completely neutralized the guilt trip. The second tactic is the veiled threat, and its counter is the clarification method. A veiled threat, such as, "It would be a shame if your performance review was negatively affected by your attitude," gets its power from being ambiguous and intimidating. The manipulator wants you to fill in the blanks with your own fear. The clarification method diffuses this by turning a spotlight on their vague words. The technique is to calmly ask for specific clarification in a neutral, almost curious tone. For example, if your boss makes that statement, you could calmly respond, "I'm not sure I understand what you mean by that. Could you clarify exactly how my attitude would affect my performance review?" A common mistake here is to ask this question with an aggressive or accusatory tone, which starts a fight. The key is to sound genuinely curious and professional. This simple question puts them in a very difficult position. They are forced to either back down and say something like, "Oh, it was just a general comment," in which case their threat has been defused, or they have to make their threat explicit. "I mean that if you disagree with me, I will give you a bad review." Making an explicit threat exposes them and is something most manipulators are completely unwilling to do. They rely on the shadows, and your calm request for clarification turns on the lights. The third tactic is gaslighting, and its counter is the Stonewall method. Arguing with a gaslighter is a losing game. They are not operating in reality, and trying to convince them of the facts is like trying to nail water to a wall. It is exhausting, and it will only make you doubt yourself more. The solution is to refuse to engage with their distorted reality. The Stonewall method involves using simple, repetitive, and calm statements that affirm your own reality without justifying, arguing, defending, or explaining. For instance, your partner says, "I never said I would pick up the groceries. You're making that up." Instead of arguing, "Yes, you did. I have the text message," you simply and calmly state, "My memory of the event is different." They will likely escalate, saying, "No, you're wrong. You always do this." You do not take the bait. You calmly repeat, "That is not my recollection of what happened." A common mistake is to get drawn into a debate about the details. Do not. The goal of the Stonewall is not to convince them. It is to end the game by refusing to play. This method protects your sanity by disengaging from the crazy-making conversation. You now have the tools to see the lies, recognize the games, and diffuse attacks in the moment. The final step is to turn this knowledge into an unbreakable, internal strength. How do you build a mind so resilient that it becomes virtually immune to manipulation? The final chapter will show you how to empower your inner lie detector permanently. Remember to subscribe to Stealth Psychology, give this video a like, and comment with your personal opinions or suggestions for channel development. Chapter 6. Empowering your inner lie detector. A shield is useless if you do not have the strength to lift it. A weapon is pointless if you do not trust your own ability to wield it effectively. In the same way, All the knowledge about manipulative tactics, red flags, and mind games is ultimately worthless without the foundational inner strength to act on that knowledge. You can learn to spot every trick in the book. You can memorize every counter tactic. But if you do not trust yourself, if you do not believe you have the fundamental right to defend your boundaries and protect your reality, then that knowledge will remain purely academic, a collection of interesting ideas with no real-world power. This is the final and most personal challenge on the path to becoming immune to manipulation. It is the deep-seated fear that even with all this new awareness, you might still fall back into your old, deeply ingrained patterns of self-doubt, people-pleasing, and second-guessing your own intuition. It is the challenge of not just learning a new set of skills, but forging a new, stronger identity. The problem is that long-term exposure to manipulation acts like a slow-acting poison to the soul. It erodes your sense of self. It teaches you that your feelings are unreliable, that your needs are unimportant, and that your boundaries are a form of selfishness. Overcoming this requires more than just tactics. It requires a fundamental rebuilding of your inner world from the ground up, replacing the faulty programming with a new code of self-worth and resilience. The transformative solution is to consciously shift your focus from the external world of manipulators and their games to the internal world of your own character and identity. Your ultimate goal is to build what we will call the unshakable core. This is not a tactic, it is a way of being. It is the intentional development of a core identity so deeply rooted in self-trust, so clearly defined by strong personal boundaries, and so nourished by emotional sovereignty that you become, by your very nature, a fundamentally difficult and unappealing target for manipulators. A manipulator is like a psychological predator. They are instinctively drawn to perceived weakness, confusion, and vulnerability. When they sense an unshakable core of self-respect and confidence in you, a calm certainty in your own being, they will instinctively move on in search of easier prey. Building this core is the final and most important form of self-defense because it is proactive, not reactive. It is about moving beyond simply recognizing manipulation after it happens and becoming the kind of person for whom manipulation is no longer a significant threat. It is the process of permanently empowering your inner lie detector by making its foundation, which is your own unwavering self-worth, absolutely unbreakable. Building your unshakable core is a lifelong practice built on 3 pillars of personal development. The first pillar is the daily practice of self-trust. Self-trust is not an abstract concept you are born with. It is a practical muscle that you build through consistent, deliberate action. It is the process of learning to listen to your intuition, your gut feelings, your inner voice, and then honoring that voice by acting on it, especially in small, low-stakes situations. This works because every time you trust your gut and it turns out to be right, or even just leads to an outcome you can handle, you are providing your subconscious mind with tangible evidence that your inner guidance system is reliable and worthy of respect. For example, you might get a strange, uneasy feeling about a new business deal that seems perfect on paper. The old you might have ignored that feeling as illogical. The new you practices self-trust by pausing and investigating that feeling, doing extra due diligence, and asking harder questions before proceeding. You might have an instinct that a friend is not being entirely honest with you. Instead of brushing it off to avoid conflict, you can make a mental note of it and observe their behavior more closely, trusting your internal alarm system. A weekly action step for this is to identify one small gut feeling you have. Whether it's to take a different route home, to reach out to an old friend, or to decline a minor social invitation you don't feel good about. Honor that instinct, and at the end of the week, reflect on the outcome. Each small act of honoring your intuition strengthens it, so that when a major situation arises, your trust in your inner lie detector will be automatic and powerful. The second pillar is the art of boundary setting. Many people who are vulnerable to manipulation view boundaries as negative, as aggressive walls that keep people out. This is a false and damaging belief instilled by those who benefit from you having none. An unshakable core is built on the understanding that boundaries are a profound act of self-respect and self-love. They are not walls. They are the fences that define your property. They simply and calmly communicate to the world where you end and where others begin, and what behavior is and is not acceptable within your space. A powerful and simple formula for setting a boundary is, when you do a specific, observable action, I feel a specific emotion. In the future, I need you to state the new desired action or the cessation of the old action. For instance, to a friend who constantly makes jokes at your expense. When you make jokes about my career in front of our friends, I feel embarrassed and undermined. In the future, I need you to stop making my job a punchline. This is not an attack. It is a clear, calm statement of your needs. A weekly action step is to identify one small area where a boundary is needed and practice this formula, even if it's just in front of a mirror at first. Learning to set and enforce these boundaries, even when it feels uncomfortable, is one of the most empowering things you can do. It teaches both you and the world that your well-being is non-negotiable. The third pillar is the cultivation of a council of voices. Manipulators thrive on isolation. They want to become the single, most important voice in your life, the sole arbiter of your reality and your worth. To build an unshakable core, you must actively counteract this by diversifying your sources of validation and perspective. You must consciously build your own personal council of trusted advisors. This council might consist of a few loyal and honest friends, a respected family member, a professional mentor, or even a therapist. These are the people you can turn to when you start to doubt your own perception. When a manipulator is trying to gaslight you, you can run the situation by a member of your council and ask, does this sound reasonable to you? Their objective, external perspective, can be an invaluable reality check that instantly cuts through the fog of manipulation. A weekly action step is to identify the people who could be on your council and to make a conscious effort to connect with one of them, strengthening that supportive bond. Having a strong support system means that no single person, no matter how charismatic or manipulative, can ever have a monopoly on your reality. You have now completed a journey through the shadows of human psychology. You began by learning to unveil the hidden manipulator, to see past their convincing masks. You learned to decode the subtle art of their deceptions, to recognize their emotional traps, and to anchor yourself against their disorienting mind games. You have been given the tools to diffuse their tactics in the heat of the moment. But this final chapter is the most important because it is about turning all of that external knowledge into internal, unshakable strength. The ultimate purpose of a lie detector is not just to spot the lies that others tell you. It is to learn to hear, trust, and live by the unwavering truth that resides within yourself. The greatest empowerment is the profound and peaceful knowledge that your sense of reality, your sense of worth, and your sense of safety come from your own unshakable core. And that is something no manipulator, no matter how skilled, can ever take away from you. You have traveled a long and insightful path, from understanding your own vulnerability to recognizing the invisible architecture of influence that surrounds us all. You began as a pawn, moved by forces you could not see, but you have emerged as an architect, capable of designing your own reality. You have learned to forge an awareness shield to see the truth, to recognize the games, and most importantly, to build an unshakable core of self-trust that will serve as your ultimate protection. The journey of this book was never about becoming cynical. It was about becoming wise. It was about achieving emotional sovereignty. The power to spot a lie is secondary to the power of knowing and trusting your own truth. Thank you for dedicating your time and attention to this journey of empowerment. If this exploration has helped you, please consider giving this video a like, commenting with your thoughts, and subscribing to Stealth Psychology for more content designed to help you master your mind and your life.